Chapter 181, The Genius Who Ended Up Behind Bars _3. Song Yuan was speechless, and couldn't help but tease, "I'm talking about you, brother Zikan. You're already an 18-year-old guy, and you finally get the chance to ask a great beauty like me a secret. Can't you be a bit more cheeky and ask about my measurements or something?" Upon hearing this, Lin Zikan felt even more speechless than she did. Sexual harassment, hey? Turns out, men and women are the same, they all want to flirt when they see someone good-looking. In one sentence, it's the ugly ones who will never know how proactive women can be. Lin Zikan had deeply realized this principle. "Haha, Sister Yan is just teasing you. Don't take it seriously, you pure-hearted little boy." Song Yuan laughed with a haha after saying this. Then, she reined in her laughter and said, "You might not believe it if I tell you, but I was actually an abandoned baby. I have no idea who my biological parents are. But don't get me wrong, I had a very happy childhood. My adoptive parents not only loved me, they were also extremely wealthy, owning several martial arts schools in the capital city. Thanks to that, I never had to worry about food or clothing growing up. I spent every day in the martial arts schools practicing, and as I kept practicing, I became the second highest scorer in the capital city's college entrance exams. Unfortunately, my adoptive parents had many chronic illnesses due to being combative in their youth, and they both fell ill and passed away during my sophomore year in high school, never seeing me become the second highest scorer. Speaking of which, the reason I followed the pure-blood human path is all because of the influence of my adoptive parents. Both of them were members of Tianren Pavilion, longtime friends of the Dean, always believing that the pure-blood human path is the future of humanity, so following the pure-blood human path was my way of fulfilling their wish." While saying this, she mocked herself, "It's just a pity that I'm too useless. I've been walking the pure-blood human path for 10 years and haven't made a splash, getting laughed at for being no different from anyone else." Lin Zikan didn't say anything, just listened intently, nodding now and then in response. He wasn't interested in Song Yuan's life story. It was just a casual question. However, since she was talking so earnestly, he still needed to listen politely. "By the way, Zikan, since you're such a prodigy, what do your parents do?" After sharing her own backstory, Song Yuan asked curiously. Lin Zikan smiled and used the same sentence structure she had just used. "You might not believe it, but both my parents are ordinary people, they write novels online." "Your parents are ordinary people?" Song Yuan said in disbelief. "How could two ordinary people produce such a genius son? A genetic mutation?" The next day, Yuan Dongji called a meeting for all the new students in the morning. Like the fire drills of the past life, she spoke about the heretical sect during the meeting. She intended for the new students to recognize the heretical sect and understand its dangers. To teach them how to identify heretics and avoid being persecuted by them. She said, "If you're coerced by heretics, you can come to her for help at any time, just don't collude with them. Otherwise, once you've soiled your hands, she wouldn't treat the coerced student as a student anymore, but rather as a heretic, a betrayer of humanity. How they would be dealt with would be determined then and there, with no room for turning back." About an hour later, the meeting ended. Yuan Dongji found Lin Zikan and informed him of the investigation results concerning Liu Gang and Wang Shijia, as well as the punishment they were to face. The investigation found both of them were confirmed to be members of the divine plant cult. During the practical college entrance exam, a safety officer forced them to consume a demonic seed. Then, under threat and temptation, they chose to join the divine plant cult. The punishment was both were expelled from Shanghai University and had to bear corresponding criminal responsibilities. Their lives were pretty much ruined. In addition, Yuan Dongji also mentioned that the Education Department of Nanjiang Province had started investigating this year's practical exam and initiated accountability procedures, which should yield results soon. Lin Zikan couldn't help but feel a bit poignant after hearing all this. Back when he first entered high school, Lu Gang and Wang Shujia had the halo of Nangwan City's prodigies who looked down on everyone in the elite class of Shanghai High School, antic and invincible. Yet, in just a short 3 years, both were behind bars. P.S. Bowl in hand, begging for monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 182, 142, Shen Qinghan Genetic Fusion Failure. Time flew by, and a week had passed. That evening, with the help of the revitalization pill, Lin Zikin successfully achieved second stage skin tempering, great accomplishment as he had wished. His body became invulnerable to blades and spears, and he could withstand close-range AK gunfire, comparable to the Golden Bell shield described in martial arts novels. In light of this, Lin Zikin didn't indulge in self-satisfaction but continued to diligently refine himself. The next day, he immediately began second stage flesh tempering. He didn't go to the research institute and spent the entire day in his dorm room refining his body. He refined himself for an entire day. He consumed 4 revitalization pills. And ultimately, he achieved a 5% progress. 5% progress in one day. As long as he maintained this refining efficiency, he would only need to refine for another 19 days to achieve second stage flesh tempering, great accomplishment. After that, he could proceed to second stage bone tempering. With such high refining efficiency, he was certain to achieve second stage body refinement, great accomplishment, before the semester ended. Thinking of this, Lin Zikin felt invigorated inside. Another week went by. That morning, Lin Zikin's progress in second stage flesh tempering increased as scheduled to 40%. In another 12 days, he would achieve second stage flesh tempering, great accomplishment, and then he could start second stage bone tempering. That same afternoon, parents from both families drove to the school, bringing as much as they could from home, planning to settle down at Shanghai University. Shen Qinghan specially took an afternoon off to join Lin Zikin in helping their parents move. The school's arranged housing was all in the outer district. This was because students not belonging to the inner district were prohibited from entering it. Even the parents of inner district students were likewise forbidden from entering the inner district. This was a strict rule. Even the parents of the newcomer king were no exception. Soon, both Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan met up with their parents and led them to their assigned houses. Thanks to Lin Zikin's request to the school authorities, their parents were allocated houses next to each other, allowing them to continue being neighbors. The only difference was that their children were living in the student dormitories, which made it feel a bit less like a complete family. It took an entire afternoon to set up the new home. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, both families gathered at a restaurant in the outer district for a meal. While eating and chatting, the atmosphere was harmonious. I just looked at the work arrangement. I've been assigned to teach cultural electives in Building C of the outer district, for inner district students, just 5 classes a week. This is too relaxing, said Shen Jianyi with a smile on his face. Su Meng also smiled and said, had I known teaching here was so relaxing, I would have moved over sooner. Lin Yanzheng and Zhang Wangzhen both felt envious listening to this. The two were novelists, and moving near the university didn't reduce their workload at all. But they enjoyed it nonetheless. Han Han, living with Xiao Chen and sharing a bed every day, how does it feel? Zhang Wangzhen asked Shen Qinghan with a teasing smile. Shen Qinghan smiled sweetly, every day is so happy, it feels like a dream. As she said this, her delicate and fair face didn't blush at all, and she wasn't as shy as before. It showed that she had grown up and her personality had become less timid. Zhang Wangzhen looked regretful, if only our parents could also enter the inner district. I really want to see your dorm rooms. If I had time, I could even help you clean. Lin Yanzheng, puzzled, said, I remember Han Han posted a lot of videos in the group chat. Couldn't you just watch those? Zhang Wangzhen rolled her eyes at him, is watching on a phone the same as seeing it in person? Around 9 o'clock at night. It was about time for Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan to head back to their dormitory. Before leaving, Su Meng pulled Shen Qinghan to the side and quietly handed her a bag. Shen Qinghan, thinking it was some gift, opened the bag with anticipation. However, upon looking inside, she found 2 boxes of ultra-thin XX condoms, leaving her speechless. "Mom, why do you always give me these?" Shen Qinghan pouted, slightly unhappy with the gift. Su Meng explained, "I'm worried you might not have enough." Not have enough? They hadn't even reached that step yet. They were not needed at all. Mumbling to herself, Shen Qinghan then seriously said, "Mom, don't give me these anymore. If we need them, I'll buy them myself." "You're just too shy to buy them, aren't you?" her mother retorted. "It's convenient to shop online nowadays." Shen Qinghan, since starting university and not being under your parents' care, have you learned to talk back? Su Meng said, looking at her daughter with dissatisfaction. Shen Qinghan immediately softened and affectionately linked arms with Su Meng, whining softly, "Not at all. I've always been the obedient darling daughter who listens to mom." Su Meng smiled and pinched her cheek, "You're already so big but still like to act spoiled. You must have been doing this a lot with Xiao Chen, right?" "I only act like this with you, Mom." "Okay, Mom knows. Go on back. Xiao Chen is waiting outside." "Mom. Bye-bye." Bye-bye." The mother and daughter waved at each other and said their goodbyes. Zhongyuan Building No. 8, Dormitory 603. By the time the 2 of them returned here, it was nearly 9:30 p.m. As soon as they entered the dormitory, Shen Qinghan remembered something very important and said to Lin Zikan, "Ziai Chen, I forgot to tell you, I have my genetic fusion scheduled for tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, in the master's office. Would you come and keep me company?" "Sure, I'll come with you," Lin Zikan replied without hesitation. An event as significant as the genetic fusion, akin to conceiving a child, was something he would have insisted on being a part of, even if Shen Qinghan hadn't asked. Chapter 183, 142, Shen Qinghan Genetic Fusion Failure _2. "It's getting late, let's go take a bath and then get to bed early." "Okay, let's go." After saying that, Lin Zikan walked with Shen Qinghan toward the front bathroom. About half an hour later, they came out of the bathroom after taking their baths. As soon as Shen Qinghan came out, she said she was hungry and wanted a late-night snack. Lin Zikan indulged her and specifically went to the kitchen to stir-fry a dish of rice noodles and squeeze a glass of spirit fruit juice to satisfy her craving. After spending a dozen minutes eating their fill, Shen Qinghan rested for a while, brushed her teeth and washed her face, and soon went to sleep in the room with Lin Zikan. After lying in bed for a while without falling asleep, she turned on her side to face Lin Zikan and said, "Xiao Chen, it's not even 11 o'clock yet, it's too early, and I can't sleep. Can I borrow your phone to play for a while? I haven't downloaded any new study videos." "It's okay, I can watch the old ones." "Here you go." Lin Zikan handed over his phone and said, "Remember to use headphones, don't let the sound play out loud." "I know." Shen Qinghan took the phone, put on the headphones, and skillfully opened the study videos that were cached inside, silently shrinking into the blanket to watch. Half an hour later, the videos ended. Shen Qinghan took off the headphones and returned the phone to Lin Zikan. As Lin Zikan reached out to take the phone, she said in a soft, sticky voice, "Xiao Chen, I'd like to drink some milk." "I'll go get it for you," Lin Zikan said, getting up from the bed and putting on his shoes. But before he had a chance to go, Shen Qinghan took hold of his hand with eyes full of affection, her voice slightly soft, "No need to go to the living room to get it, just lie down on the bed." The next day, 7:30 a.m. The 2 of them sat opposite each other at the dining table for breakfast. Today's breakfast was also made by Lin Zikan. It was simple, a bowl of corn dumplings, a boiled egg, and a cup of hot milk. After finishing the dumplings and egg, Shen Qinghan held the hot milk in front of her and couldn't wait to drink it. The egg was too dry, and she was very thirsty. Xiao Chen, the milk is not tasty at all, it's all a lie. After finishing the milk in the cup, Shen Qinghan wiped the corner of her mouth, pouted her rosy lips slightly, and complained as if she had been deceived. Lin Zikin looked at the empty cup in front of her and laughed without saying a word. Xiao Chen, I have to undergo genetic fusion tonight at 9 p.m., and I'm a bit nervous. A hint of unease appeared on Shen Qinghan's pretty face. Lin Zikin comforted her with a gentle voice. It's normal to feel nervous the first time. After doing it a few more times and getting used to it, it'll be fine. That's true. Shen Qinghan nodded in agreement. They sat like that and chatted for a while, then quickly got up to clean up the dining table together. A moment later, after the table was cleared, Shen Qinghan put on the small backpack that Lin Zikin had made for her and went out to class on her own. Lin Zikin chose not to go to the research institute today but to stay at home for a second tempering flesh. This tempering lasted a quick 10 hours. With the help of 4 revitalization pills, the progress of the second tempering flesh successfully advanced to 45%. Seeing that it was 5:30 p.m., Lin Zikin put away the yoga mat, picked a few ingredients from the fridge, and took them to the kitchen to cook dinner. Closer to 6 p.m. Shen Qinghan came back with her backpack. As soon as she entered the house, she smelled the aroma coming from the kitchen, and she couldn't help swallowing saliva. The dishes Lin Zikin cooked were so fragrant that she never got tired of eating them, just one whiff made her want to eat. After dinner, the two sat on the couch reading books for a while. Feeling sufficiently digested, Shen Qinghan stood up, left the living room, and went to the bathroom for a shower. In just over an hour, she would head to Yuan Dongji's office for her first genetic fusion. Before that, it was necessary to clean up. 8:30 p.m. Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan left home to head towards Yuan Dongji's office. They walked leisurely for over 10 minutes. Arriving at the administrative building, they walked in, took the elevator to the 5th floor. When the two entered the principal's office, Yuan Dongji had already been waiting inside for a long time. Upon seeing Shen Qinghan, Yuan Dongji handed her a cup of warm water to drink all at once. After finishing that cup, she poured another one for her to continue drinking. In total, she drank 5 cups, nearly a liter of water. This was the preparatory work before fusing the blue spirit jellyfish gene. The blue spirit jellyfish is a water attribute exotic beast. The more water there is in the body, the easier it is to fuse with its genes. Master, I can't drink any more. Shen Qinghan put down her cup and touched her full belly, feeling a bit uncomfortable. Yuan Dongji said indifferently, if you can't drink any more, there's no need to force it. Come up to the bed and lie down, and I'm going to fuse you with the Azure Jellyfish King's genes. Thank you, Master. Shen Qinghan obediently lay down on the bed, her belly filled with water slightly raised, making her look like a little pregnant woman several months along. Yuan Dongji brought over a syringe filled with blue liquid, sat next to Shen Qinghan, and said to her, the blue liquid in this syringe I'm holding contains the Azure Jellyfish King gene. When I inject it later, I have to insert it directly into the heart. But don't worry, the insertion won't hurt. I'll use spiritual power to numb your pain nerves so you won't feel any pain. However, during the gene fusion process, even if your pain nerves are numbed, you will still feel pain. But, the duration of the process usually won't be too long, at most just a few minutes. During that time, if you truly can't bear the pain, feel free to scream out loud, don't hold it in, understand? I understand. Master. Shen Qinghan nodded her head. Chapter 184, 142, Shen Qinghan Genetic Fusion Failure _3. As she said these words, fear and nervousness filled her eyes, and she felt extremely uneasy inside. Such a thick needle, directly piercing into the heart to inject. Could it really be painless? The sensation felt like it could stab someone to death. After simply explaining the precautions to Shen Qinghan, Yuan Dongji retrieved the tools they'd need later, preparing to inject Shen Qinghan with the Azure Jellyfish King gene. Before the injection, she looked at Lin Zikan in front of her and said, "You'll have to lift up your clothes for the injection, you should step out to avoid any discomfort." "We've already been intimate, no need for such formalities," Shen Qinghan thought to herself, her cheeks blushing slightly as she quietly said, "Master, we've already been living together." "Living together?" Yuan Dongji was somewhat surprised, but didn't pay much attention to it, simply saying calmly, "Since you two are living together, there's no need to avoid each other." Having said that, she lifted Shen Qinghan's shirt, took a piece of cloth soaked in alcohol, and wiped her chest for disinfection. After disinfecting, she aimed the sharp needle at Shen Qinghan's chest and said, "Qinghan, I'm going to insert it now." "MHM." Shen Qinghan responded tersely, closing her eyes in fear. Seeing that she was ready, Yuan Dongji released her own spiritual power to anesthetize Shen Qinghan's pain receptors. Then, with a gentle push, she accurately pierced the needle into her heart and slowly injected the Azure Jellyfish King gene from the syringe. Lin Zikan witnessed the scene, finding it incredible. He had previously studied the process of human genetic fusion and even watched related videos. From them, he learned that various precise monitoring instruments are needed during genetic fusion, to constantly observe changes in the subject's body data. However, Yuan Dongji needed no monitoring instruments at that moment. This was because her incredibly powerful spiritual power was the best monitoring instrument that could minutely observe every data change in Shen Qinghan's body. Soon, the Azure Jellyfish King gene was completely injected. Yuan Dongji removed the needle from Shen Qinghan's heart and took some white mystical ointment, spreading it over the remaining needle hole on her chest. As soon as the ointment was applied, the next second, the needle hole on Shen Qinghan's chest swiftly healed, appearing as good as new. After the genetic fusion starts, you will soon feel intense pain, so you need to be psychologically prepared, Yuan Dongji cautioned Shen Qinghan. Shen Qinghan mhm'd again, tightly closing her eyes, biting her lower lip, ready to face a bout of severe pain. However, 1 second passed. 2 seconds passed. 3 seconds passed. Even after 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and even 10 seconds had passed, Shen Qinghan still didn't feel any pain. This was completely different from what Yuan Dongji had said. Faced with this situation, Shen Qinghan felt particularly uneasy, and couldn't help asking weakly, "Master, it's so strange, I don't feel any pain at all, could something be wrong?" Yuan Dongji did not respond. It wasn't that she hadn't heard Shen Qinghan. Nor was she being aloof. Instead, she was completely stunned at that moment. The Azure Jellyfish King's gene had been successfully injected into Shen Qinghan's heart without any rejection reaction. The process went very smoothly. But strangely, the Azure Jellyfish King gene that was injected did not fuse with Shen Qinghan's genes. Instead, it was eerily controlled. All of the Azure Jellyfish King genes were controlled by Shen Qinghan's genes. Unable to fuse. P.S. Setting out my bowl, asking for monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 185, 143. Shen Qinghan's ability gene slavery. Master. Shen Qinghan opened her eyes and saw Yuan Dongji standing still with a stunned expression, not responding to her words, which made her voice her doubt and feel very uneasy. Lin Zikan's brow furrowed slightly, and after hesitating for a moment he stepped forward and asked, "Principal Yuan, is there a problem with Han Han's genetic fusion?" Upon hearing the two people's voices, Yuan Dongji quickly snapped back to reality. She steadied her emotions and said with some uncertainty, "King Han's genetic fusion failed, it didn't successfully integrate the Azure Jellyfish King genes, but I can't say it's an outright failure." "What do you mean?" Lin Zikan's brows knitted even tighter. Either it succeeds, or it fails. What is this? Not a complete failure. Did it only fuse halfway? Lin Zikin was worried about this, afraid that Shen Qinghan's body might develop problems because of it. Abnormal situations always provoke such unease. Yuan Dongji didn't hide the situation from her young disciple's cohabiting boyfriend and told the truth. Under normal circumstances, if exotic beast genes injected into the heart don't cause a severe rejection reaction, it's considered a successful genetic fusion. Because the biggest difficulty in genetic fusion is the rejection reaction. As long as there is no rejection reaction, with the assistance of various drugs in the gene reagent, one's own genes will quickly fuse with the exotic beast gene on their own, obtaining the authority to express the exotic beast gene, thus attaining certain abilities of the respective exotic beast. However, Qinghan's situation is strange. The Azure Jellyfish King genes injected into her didn't cause the slightest rejection reaction, nor did they initiate fusion, but were instead completely controlled. All the Azure Jellyfish King genes were controlled by her own genes. As she spoke these words, disbelief was written all over Yuan Dongji's face, and she felt very unreal. Having lived for nearly a century and personally witnessed the development of genetic fusion technology from scratch to the present, participating in tens of thousands of genetic fusion surgeries, she had never seen a case like Shen Qinghan's. She had not only never seen it, but she had also never even heard of it. Her past knowledge of genetic fusion was completely shattered, leaving her dumbfounded. The Azure Jellyfish King genes, controlled by Han Han's genes? Lin Zichen was extremely puzzled and looked at Yuan Dongji, asking, "Principal Yuan, what exactly is going on?" "I can't quite clarify what exactly is going on," Yuan Dongji admitted with uncharacteristic patience. "The only thing I'm clear about now is that, under the perception of my spiritual power, I found that Qinghan's own genes seem to have a mind of their own, systematically surrounding the invading Azure Jellyfish King genes and then coiling around them, restricting their freedom. During the process, some Azure Jellyfish King genes instinctively tried to initiate fusion, only to be directly strangled by Qinghan's genes, turning into a heap of gene fragments that were completely absorbed as nutrients. The current situation is that the remaining Azure Jellyfish King genes are all restricted in their freedom, looking like a female thief who broke into a house and got imprisoned in the basement by the homeowner, a situation I have never encountered." Surrounding? Coiling? Imprisoning? Hearing these sensitive words, Lin Zichen found it unbelievable. Is this something genes can do? This notion was so astonishing that it made him doubt whether Yuan Dongji was lying. Unfortunately, his spiritual power was not strong enough, otherwise, he would also want to investigate Shen Qinghan's body to verify if it was really that bizarre. While the two were talking, Shen Qinghan on the bed was very well behaved, not interrupting, listening quietly the entire time. As she was attentively listening to Yuan Dongji explain the situation in her body, suddenly, she noticed her hair changing color, turning blue at a visible rate, resembling the hue of the ocean. At the same time, it became even more supple and glossy, looking crystal clear like water. "Xiao Chen, Master, my hair is changing color." Shen Qinghan felt a bit panicked and turned to look at the two as she spoke, reacting immediately. There was no need for her reminder, as Lin Zichen and Yuan Dongji had already noticed. Because their gaze had never left her, not even for a second. "What's the matter?" Yuan Dongji was once again baffled and asked with a puzzled expression, "Why does she express the Azure Jellyfish King's genes when the fusion clearly failed?" Turning hair blue is one of the characteristics expressed by the blue spirit jellyfish genes. This shouldn't be occurring in Shen Qinghan. Yuan Dongji sat down by the bed and observed Shen Qinghan's now azure blue supple hair closely, asking her, "Qinghan, do you feel anything unusual in your body?" Shen Qinghan calmed her emotions, focused quietly and felt something carefully, then said uncertainly, "It feels like there's something extra inside of me. I can sense it, and it seems I can also control it." "Something extra inside? Able to sense it? And even control it?" Isn't that a genetic integrator? Yuan Dongji felt perplexed. After some thought, she figured that it must be a problem with her own spiritual power. Indeed, Shen Qinghan had successfully fused with the Azure Jellyfish King genes, and it was a flaw in her spiritual power perception that had prevented her from realizing this. Thinking this, she immediately withdrew her spiritual power from Shen Qinghan's body. She took a moment to rest, allowing her brain to take a short break. Afterward, she extended her spiritual power again, entering Shen Qinghan's body, carefully examining the Azure Jellyfish King genes inside. Her findings revealed that the Azure Jellyfish King genes were still being controlled by Shen Qinghan's genes. There was no mutual fusion whatsoever. Chapter 186, 143. Shen Qinghan's ability gene slavery, _2. But what was different from before was that at this moment, the Azure Jellyfish King's gene was striving to express itself. It looked as if it were threatened by Shen Qinghan's genetic death threat, and if it didn't express its gene, it would strangle. What on earth was going on? Yuan Dongji was extremely shocked in her heart, feeling baffled beyond measure. But one thing could be certain, Shen Qinghan didn't need to fuse with the exotic beast gene, she just needed to control the exotic beast gene to express it and acquire the abilities of the exotic beast. It's just like a jerk, only responsible for bed affairs and not marriage, never having to worry about divorce disputes. In the domain of genetic fusion, it's like never having to worry about backlash from the exotic beast gene. No, that's not vivid enough. When jerks date, they are equal in status. The situation inside Shen Qinghan's body is more like a relationship between master and slave. Shen Qinghan's genes had enslaved all those foreign Azure Jellyfish King genes, turning them into its slaves, making the Azure Jellyfish King genes work for it. If they obey, they just bind and imprison, if they don't, they get strangled. Yes, that's it. It's a relationship of enslavement. Gene slavery. Yuan Dongji made such a judgment about the situation inside Shen Qinghan's body and named this phenomenon gene slavery. She felt that her conjectures were well-founded, logical, and scientifically minded. Without surprises, the truth should be just so. After roughly figuring out these things, Yuan Dongji looked at Shen Qinghan and said, "Qinghan, the thing you sense inside your body should be the Azure Jellyfish King gene that I just injected into you. Now, the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside you is in an activated state. Calm your mind, and try to use your spiritual power to control it, make it fall into dormancy." "Oh, I'll try." Shen Qinghan's voice was soft as she replied. Then, concentrating, she did as Yuan Dongji said and tried to use her spiritual power to control the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside her. It was only a moment of fumbling. Soon, Shen Qinghan intuitively succeeded in controlling the Azure Jellyfish King gene all by herself. Then, with a thought, she put the Azure Jellyfish King gene into dormancy. At the same time, her hair as blue as the sea visibly faded from blue and returned to its original black color. Seeing this, Yuan Dongji was excited in her heart. Shen Qinghan could control the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside her. My guess was right. After steadying her emotions for a moment, Yuan Dongji looked at Shen Qinghan and said, "Qinghan, now try to reactivate the Azure Jellyfish King gene." "Okay." After speaking, Shen Qinghan thought, reactivating the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside her. The next second, her hair turned bright and shiny blue again, dazzlingly beautiful. Seeing her hair turn blue again, Yuan Dongji could no longer suppress the excitement in her heart. She's so strong. Shen Qinghan's physique is truly too strong. Even the likes of Li Moyu, Ma Ziwei, and even Student Council President Zhou Suihong, who are top genetic integrators, need at least 3 days to adapt after successfully fusing with an exotic beast gene, and then they can activate or put their exotic beast gene into dormancy at will. But Shen Qinghan, she had just injected the exotic beast gene into her heart and was directly able to control the exotic beast gene. This is much more powerful than a genetic integrator. In front of her, a genetic integrator is just like a mentally challenged child. A skill that could be mastered instantly, yet they have to spend at least 3 days to master it. What about the genius of the capital's top university? What about the unbeatable genetic fusion talent? All of these are not worth mentioning in the face of Shen Qinghan's gene slavery ability. The more Yuan Dongji thought about it, the more excited she got. The disciple she had newly taken had potential far beyond what she had imagined. As for the compatibility of genetic fusion reaching 21%, this is completely incomparable in the face of the ability of gene slavery. Seeing the usually cold and reticent Yuan Dongji suddenly showing excitement in a way that didn't fit her persona, Lin Zikan immediately asked, "Principal Yuan, what's the situation with Han Han now?" Yuan Dongji, feeling exceptionally good, smiled and said, "I have a good news and a bad news, which would you like to hear first?" Lin Zikan didn't speak, silently looking at Shen Qinghan on the bed, allowing her to decide. Shen Qinghan hesitated for a moment, her mood somewhat uneasy, and said, "Well, let's hear the bad news first." "Yuan Dongji, the bad news is, you may never become a genetic integrator." "Ah!" Shen Qinghan was stunned for a moment. Then, she felt as though her whole world had crumbled. She had finally tested out a high 21% compatibility for genetic fusion. She had finally turned from an ordinary person into a top-tier talent. She had finally earned the right to be with Lin Zikan and be called the double pride of the era. But in less than half a year, was she going to fall back to mediocrity? Heartbroken, distressed, despair, agony. For a moment, Shen Qinghan was overwhelmed with negative emotions, feeling the world darken. But soon, she realized something was amiss. If she could not become a genetic integrator, then why could she freely control the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside her just now? Wasn't that something only a genetic integrator could do? With these thoughts in her mind, Shen Qinghan asked full of confusion, "Master, then why could I control the Azure Jellyfish King gene inside me just now? Isn't that something only a genetic integrator can do?" Yuan Dongji smiled and said, "That's exactly what I'm about to tell you in the good news." "Master, I want to hear the good news." Shen Qinghan could no longer wait, desperately needing some good news to soothe her restless spirit. Chapter 187, 143. Shen Qinghan's ability gene slavery, _3. Yuan Dongji said with a smile, "The good news is, you are more advanced and powerful than a genetic integrator, you don't need genetic fusion to do what they can, and you can do it even better." "Really?" Shen Qinghan was overjoyed. Yuan Dongji smiled, then shared her conjecture about gene slavery. She explained in detail. She emphasized the power of gene slavery. She said that Shen Qinghan didn't need to fuse with an exotic beast gene to express the gene and gain the exotic beast's abilities, without worrying about being backfired by the exotic beast gene. Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan were both surprised after hearing this. Among them, Shen Qinghan's pretty face turned red with excitement, more excited than if she had won several 100 million in a lottery. But soon, Yuan Dongji poured cold water on her by saying indifferently, "Qinghan, don't be too happy too soon, Master's conjecture may not be accurate. Whether you're actually more advanced than a genetic integrator, that still needs to be observed over time. So far, we have not found any pure-blood human being able to break the shackles of ordinary creatures to evolve into an advanced-level creature. Only by integrating with an exotic beast gene can one break this shackle. And your current situation is, you can't fuse with an exotic beast gene, but you can enslave it, express it, and gain the corresponding abilities. What does this mean? It means that you are essentially still a pure-blood human." Saying this, Yuan Dongji asked Shen Qinghan, "Do you think, you can break the shackles of ordinary creatures with your pure-blood human body?" This question, like a bucket filled with ice-cold water, was poured over Shen Qinghan's head, extinguishing all her excitement and joy. From great sorrow to great joy, then back to great sorrow again. This set of emotional roller coaster moves left Shen Qinghan silent for a long time, unable to speak. Don't be so disheartened. Yuan Dongji said with her genteel smile, in my opinion, since your genes can enslave the genes of the Azure Jellyfish King, that means your genes are stronger than those of the Jellyfish King. And the genes of the Azure Jellyfish King belong to an advanced level creature. Therefore, you have a good chance of breaking the shackles of ordinary creatures with your own genes. At this point, Yuan Dongji placed her hand on Shen Qinghan's shoulder, looking at her with great expectation. You are very likely to become the first pioneer on Earth to break away from the constraints of ordinary creatures and evolve into an advanced level creature using a pure-blood human body. I really can. After hearing Yuan Dongji's words, Shen Qinghan's whole mind was in a whirl, resembling an innocent girl who had been hoodwinked by a cult leader. Yuan Dongji said seriously, if a pure-blood human can really break the shackles of ordinary creatures, then the first one to do so will definitely be you. Lin Zikan frowned. What did that mean? Was she looking down on him? Muttering in his heart, he calmly asked Yuan Dongji, Principal Yuan, according to what you said, does that mean Han Han will be following the pure-blood human path from now on? Yuan Dongji shook her head, she can't walk the pure-blood human path. Lin Zikan was puzzled, can't walk it. Yuan Dongji patiently explained, whether one can walk the pure-blood human path depends on one's physical talent and the strength of their chi blood, and both of these just happen to be King Han's weak points. Abilities of the controlling type are generally linked with spiritual power, and King Han's gene slavery ability should be no exception. So, King Han's future direction of evolution is to refine her spiritual power, enhance the strength of her gene slavery ability, and then keep on enslaving exotic beast genes to become stronger. This is an unprecedented and pioneering path of evolution, only feasible for King Han who has the ability for gene slavery, others cannot. Yuan Dongji added, although King Han is not a genetic integrator, her main method of improving strength is inseparable from the exotic beast genes. Considering this, King Han will still be a student in the Genius class of Evolution College, and on the surface, she'll be identified as a genetic integrator. This secret, just the two of you should know, don't tell anyone, not even parents. After giving her instructions, Yuan Dongji turned to Shen Qinghan and said, King Han, there's still much to research about your gene slavery ability, so from now on, come to my office every night at 8 o'clock if you are free, and we'll study it together. Yes, Master. I understand, Shen Qinghan obediently nodded, displaying a model student's attributes perfectly. Yuan Dongji glanced at the time and spoke with rare gentleness, all right, it's getting late, both of you should go back and rest early. Principal Yuan, goodbye. Master, bye-bye. Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan waved politely to Yuan Dongji and quickly left the office. After the two had left, Yuan Dongji picked up the mobile phone on the desk and dialed her father's number. Soon, the call connected, and a deep male voice came through. Dongji, why are you calling so late? I dialed by mistake. Oh, then I'll hang up first, I'm having a drink with a few friends. Dad, drink less. Hey, I know, don't nag like your mother, young lady. I'm hanging up now. Beep 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 beep. After a brief conversation, Yuan Dongji ended the call with her father. She thought about it and decided not to tell her nearly 200-year-old father about Shen Qinghan's situation. This secret about her little disciple should just be known to herself and the little disciple couple, there was no need for a fourth person to know, to avoid unnecessary trouble. P.S. Setting out my bowl, seeking monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 188, 144. Remotely controlling another person's chi blood. In the days that followed, whenever she had the time, Shen Qinghan would arrive promptly at 8 p.m. at Yuan Dongji's office to study her gene slavery ability with her bargain mentor. They focused on this research for nearly half a month. During that time, Shen Qinghan's body showed no signs of abnormalities. The genes of the Azure Jellyfish King within her were tightly controlled by her own DNA. Any movement from the Azure Jellyfish King gene would be instantly crushed by her own. The remaining genes of the Azure Jellyfish King behaved like obedient slaves. Shen Qinghan needed only to think, and they would express or enter dormancy as she wished. Genetic integrators would cry with envy at the sight. For genetic integrators, each fusion with an exotic beast gene was followed by a period of instability, during which, they needed constant injection of drugs to stabilize and prevent any anomalous transformations. Whereas Shen Qinghan, who possessed the gene slavery ability, didn't have to worry about this at all, enjoying the ability to freeload off the genes of exotic beasts. Administrative building. Inside the principal's office, the lights were blazing. Yuan Dongji, clad in a light white cheongsam, sat crossing her legs on the office chair, her pose sensual yet elegant, emanating the aura of a noble woman and appearing as an experienced charmer. In contrast, sitting across from her in a light blue dress, Shen Qinghan seemed somewhat pure and restrained. Sitting upright throughout, she resembled an elementary student occupying the front row in a classroom. Shen Qinghan and Yuan Dongji, despite their mentor-apprentice relationship, weren't particularly close. Most of their interactions bore the air of a serious and reserved elementary school teacher-student relationship. "Come on, Qinghan, try using spiritual power as I just taught you to slowly move the water from the left cup to the right cup," Yuan Dongji said, her voice unusually gentle. She was very much invested in her well-behaved little apprentice and wanted to deepen their bond and nurture her growth. "I'll give it a try," answered Shen Qinghan, in her soft voice. Next, with a thought, she activated the gene of the Azure Jellyfish King within her, causing her hair to turn a vibrant, shiny blue. Then, again with a thought, she clumsily spread out her spiritual power, gradually moving the water from the left cup to the right one. Her spiritual power was weak and far from being strong enough to manipulate objects through the air. Ordinarily, she wouldn't be able to move the water from one cup to another. But with the properties of the Azure Jellyfish King gene enhancing her abilities, she did it effortlessly. Moreover, she did it perfectly. The water she drew was silky smooth, pouring completely into the other cup without spilling a single drop onto the table. Yuan Dongji witnessed the whole process, deeply impressed. She considered herself a genius among geniuses, but compared to Shen Qinghan, she seemed utterly common. The silky water control Shen Qinghan displayed just now took her 3 months of hard practice to accomplish when she was younger. Yet Shen Qinghan had succeeded in less than half a month. The disparity was like the difference between heaven and earth. Pleased with what she saw, Yuan Dongji didn't skimp on her praise. "Not bad, your water control ability is much stronger than mine was back then, indeed, the blue is outshining the indigo." "You flatter me, master," Shen Qinghan said modestly. She felt a bit embarrassed by Yuan Dongji's compliments, her fingers playing with her smooth hair on her shoulders in shyness. For Yuan Dongji, the more she watched her apprentice's bashful demeanor, the more endearing she found it. She then continued, "The method of spiritual refinement I taught you last night, you must practice it diligently for an hour every night before going to bed. Strive to raise your currently faint spiritual power to the standard required to train in the Spirit Refinement Room in a month's time. Training in the Spirit Refinement Room will enhance your spiritual power rapidly. Once it is sufficiently high, you will be able to influence not just water from a distance but also the chi blood within others' bodies. Do you understand what it means to be able to control others' chi blood from a distance? It means that in a confrontation, you could at the very least cause your opponent's chi blood to flow chaotically or, at worst, make them explode and die from it. To kill an enemy would be but a thought away." Yuan Dongji said this last sentence with an emphasis that carried a surge of momentum. To kill an enemy with just a thought. Hearing Yuan Dongji's words, Shen Qinghan felt a bit unreal. Just a few months ago, in the practical exam for the college entrance exam, she had to set up traps in advance to hunt a wild boar, wielding a sharpened bamboo stick and approached with caution, fearing to be overturned by the creature. Yet now, just a few months later, she was at the point where she could kill with a mere thought. She had improved so fast. Shen Qinghan felt a wave of emotion within herself. Unaware of her thoughts, Yuan Dongji quickly resumed speaking. The skill to influence others' chi blood remotely is something I mastered a year after integrating with the gene of the Azure Jellyfish King, but with a better talent than mine. You should aim to master it before the end of this term. Do you have confidence? Yes, I have confidence, replied Shen Qinghan, nodding confidently without a hint of hesitation. Surprised, but then reassured, Yuan Dongji smiled and said, "Good, a top-tier genius should have top-tier confidence, a genius without confidence will sooner or later fade into obscurity. A genius ought to be proud and competitive." Chapter 189, 144. Remotely controlling another person's chi blood _2. Shen Qinghan nodded vigorously. In front of Yuan Dongji, nodding had almost become her signature move. By the way, Master, when I saw you walking on the waves to come to the research base during the college entrance examination, it was so breathtaking. If I want to walk on the waves like that, how long will I at least have to practice? Shen Qinghan asked longingly. Yuan Dongji laughed and said, I was nearly 45 when I managed to walk on the waves like I did that day. For you, I think you can do it before you turn 30, I have great faith in you. Before 30? Hearing what Yuan Dongji said, Shen Qinghan felt a little overwhelmed. It was the first time in her life someone had such high hopes for her, giving her a very peculiar feeling. Seeing her so pleasantly surprised, Yuan Dongji couldn't help but smile, finding her little disciple inexplicably adorable. Unlike the eldest disciple from Origin Land, who was always expressionless, taciturn, not rejoicing in material gains, nor wallowing in one's own sorrows, like a block of emotionless ice. Thinking thus, Yuan Dongji said to Shen Qinghan, Qinghan, at the end of the term, I will inject you with other exotic beast genes to further research your gene slavery ability. Okay, I understand, Master. It's getting late, if there's nothing else, you should head back and rest early. Okay, goodbye, Master. After finishing, Shen Qinghan quickly left the office. She missed Lin Zikan and wanted to go back and take a bath with him in the bathroom, enjoying their private world. Zhongyuan Building No. 8, Dorm Room 603. On the balcony, Lin Zikan was sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat, sweating profusely as he refined his muscles for the second time. After some time, he slowly opened his clear eyes, let out a deep breath, and a relieved smile spread across his face. The second tempering flesh was a success. Next up, time for the second bone tempering. With the boost from the revitalization pill, let's set a small goal, aim to complete it within 2 months. Speaking of which, I still haven't tried out the mental refinement method I learned from Han Han last night. Now that I'm free, might as well give it a go. With that thought, Lin Zikan closed his eyes and, following the technique Shen Qinghan taught him the night before, calmed his breathing and emptied his mind as he meditated. About half an hour later, a prompt slowly appeared in the void. Spiritual power +1. That's it. Lin Zikan felt a bit disappointed. Half an hour of meditation only increased his spiritual power by 1 point, not even as much as solving a few math problems would have. This so-called mental refinement method wasn't suited for a cheater like him. Creak. A door opening sound came from the living room. It was Shen Qinghan returning. She quickly changed into a pair of pink slippers meant for indoor wear, then briskly walked towards the balcony. Before long, she stopped in front of Lin Zikan and said with a sweet smile, Xiao Chen, I have some good news for you. What good news? Lin Zikan looked up at her and asked. With her hands behind her back, Shen Qinghan smiled mysteriously and said, I won't tell you just yet. After you finish refining, let's take a bath together and then I'll tell you. Then let's go take a bath now. Lin Zikan stood up, picked up Shen Qinghan in his arms, not even bothering to clean up the yoga mat, and headed straight for the bathroom. He didn't like his curiosity being piqued, he wanted to know the good news right now. In the bathroom. The two of them took over 10 minutes to finish bathing, sitting face to face in the large tub, comfortably enjoying the warm water. After soaking for a while, Lin Zikin couldn't wait to ask Shen Qinghan, now that we're already soaking, what's the good news? The good news is Shen Qinghan started to speak, then paused teasingly for a bit before continuing with a smile, I can control water now. Lin Zikin raised an eyebrow, finding this a bit surprising. He hadn't expected Shen Qinghan to learn water control so quickly. Seems like little Miss Dirty was quite talented in playing with water. She couldn't be seen as just an ordinary person. Thinking this, he said to Shen Qinghan, show me. Then keep your eyes peeled because this will definitely dazzle you. After saying this, Shen Qinghan began to demonstrate her water control ability, levitating a part of the water from the tub in the air in front of Lin Zikin. Then, using her weak spiritual power, she morphed the water into various shapes. There were cubes, rectangular prisms, spheres, cones, and more. Next, she even formed a basketball with clear stripes and a granular surface. How impressive is your sister Qinghan? With the water basketball slowly rotating in the air, Shen Qinghan bragged a little with a triumphant smile. Watching this scene unfold before his very eyes, Lin Zikin was truly amazed and said in disbelief, to control it so smoothly right after learning, your talent is so incredible it's almost exaggerated. And there's more impressive stuff to come. Please, begin your performance. I'm about to start my performance, don't blink. Okay. I've got my eyes wide open. As Lin Zikin tried his best to widen his eyes, the water basketball floating in front of him suddenly morphed into a thin stream, cleverly splashing onto his face like a squirt of urine. Haha, you fell for it. The sound of Shen Qinghan's mischievous laughter came from ahead. Xiao Chen, you look just like those clueless dads in comedy videos who get peed on by their babies, completely bewildered, haha. Lin Zikin wiped the water off his face and said with resignation, Shen Wuhang, you're getting sillier. Chapter 190, 144. Remotely controlling another person's chi blood _3. That's nice, the joy of a sand sculpture girl is plenty. Having said that, Shen Qinghan laughed for a while, then collected her smile and continued, I was just joking with you. Actually, what's even more incredible is that I can manipulate someone's chi blood from a distance. Really? You can manipulate others' chi blood from a distance? Lin Zikin was not amazed this time, but rather shocked, his face filled with disbelief. Of course it's true. Shen Qinghan said earnestly, come on. I'll show you by manipulating your chi blood from a distance right now. Lin Zikin didn't speak, waiting for her to manipulate. 3 seconds passed. 6 seconds passed. 9 seconds passed. Lin Zikin didn't feel his chi blood being manipulated, so he asked, isn't it working yet? No, I can't do it. Shen Qinghan said with a look of frustration, the intensity of your chi blood is too high, and my spiritual power isn't strong enough, I simply can't manipulate it. Is that so? After Lin Zikin spoke, his thoughts shifted, and he retracted the intensity of his chi blood, then said to Shen Qinghan, I've just retracted the intensity of my chi blood, try it again now. I'll try. Shen Qinghan responded and immediately spread her spiritual power, manipulating Lin Zikin's chi blood from a distance. Then, to her delighted surprise, she found she could manipulate it. Xiao Chen, it worked, I've manipulated it, do you feel it? I feel it. Lin Zikin nodded, distinctly aware that his chi blood was being manipulated by a faint spiritual power from afar. Shen Qinghan carefully manipulated a small part of Lin Zikin's chi blood, curiously flowing and exploring inside his body, finding it quite fun. While manipulating it, she suddenly had a bold idea, and then she slowly started drawing that portion of chi blood towards a place where it shouldn't be led. Shen Wuhang, you get dirtier day by day. Sensing the direction of that portion of chi blood inside him, Lin Zikin immediately realized Shen Qinghan's thoughts, and his whole person was a bit speechless. Shen Qinghan said with an indifferent face, "It's not dirty, it's sexy." Sure, it's sexy." Lin Zikan chose to indulge her, letting her play however she wanted. After all, this little dirty girl was only naughty at home, which wasn't a bad thing. And he had to admit, letting her be naughty occasionally was indeed quite sexy. After playing around for a while, Shen Qinghan had had enough. Quickly, with a single thought, she retracted her dispersed spiritual power from Lin Zikan, and with a face asking for praise she said, "Xiao Chen, am I not very good at playing with water?" Lin Zikan, indeed, you're amazing, almost invincible in fact. Shen Qinghan listened with joy inside. But the next second, Lin Zikan teased her with a smile, "Likewise, you'd be invincible at playing with pee. Ah, you're so annoying." Shen Qinghan pursed her rosy lips, hitting Lin Zikan with a look of discontent. Lin Zikan continued to teasingly say, "I really think you'd be invincible at playing with pee. Think about it, since you can control someone else's chi blood, then by extension, you could definitely control someone's pee too. In future battles with enemies, just by thinking about it, you could make the enemy wet their pants. That would be a full-on killer move, right? So annoying, you better stop mentioning pee, or I'll get mad." Shen Qinghan puffed up her cheeks in displeasure. "It was obviously you who started splashing water on my face first, and then you bring up pee," Lin Zikan thought to himself, meanwhile nodding continuously and saying, all right, I won't mention it anymore. P.S. Begging for monthly and recommendation tickets.